So this is what I'm going to talk about today. So I wrote an article for 1080. I'll get to Peter's story here in a second. Just trying to get normative data. I've had the second machine. I've logged thousands and thousands of people on this, all kinds of people. But having the second machine and the people who had the first one at University of Kentucky, they don't do anything with it except they did one research paper. It's like, I have no idea what to do. So really I had to create everything because there was nobody to ask, nobody to do. So like you, internet, Google search, exercise equipment for building speed, whatever my thing was, and the 1080 thing popped up, and so I filled out the form, right? Go to the state track meet. We won it. Woo! Next day, Sunday morning, someone's knocking at my front door, and it's Peter. Like, hey, he goes, I'm the guy from 1080. Yeah, it's 9 on Sunday. I got one in the car. All right. Well, let's get it out. I don't have kids coming for a while, but let's get it out. And so Peter goes in the back car, drags out the 1080. We had to find power for it because we all know that sucker takes a lot of power. And sure enough, I had some people come by and went, yeah, this is pretty cool, but let's go out in the street and let's do overspeed. All right. So we went out in the street and we're doing overspeed. Wow, this is pretty cool. And then I bought one. I thought, well, you know what? I kind of have the Napoleon adage, if you ever ask how much money it's going to cost, you've lost the war. So I figured I can come up with that money somehow. I don't tell my wife how much. I hide that, kick it down the road, disperse it, use some cash. Nobody really knows. And then I had one in my house, and I started using it. So that's my 1080 story. So I'm Chris Korfist. I am a sprint coach at Homewood Flossmoor High School. This is my 35th year coaching. I've been teaching U.S. history for 33 years. That's my real job. I teach and coach at 2 different places. If you want to contact me, I don't do social media very well, but that's my Twitter. I haven't put anything up there in forever. I have a YouTube page that someone puts stuff up for me. I have no idea what that is or how to find that on YouTube. I just know I'm paying someone a lot of money to do it, and I don't seem to be making any money for it, so I may have to stop that. But if you want to contact me, just send me an email or call me. I'm pretty accessible. I do own a gym. It's Slow Guy Speed School. It's my basement, guys. It's not this. This is incredible. It's great that it's my basement because I have no overhead. If nobody shows up, I just walk the dogs or go play guitar or something like that. So it's not the end of the world if I don't have any business. Sometimes I'm hoping for no business because it gets to be too much. I can buy whatever I want. I can take chances. It just it's not a business because once it becomes a business, it's not as fun. But if I can do this as a hobby and not have to worry about paying for things and be passionate about it, because I think when it becomes a business, you lose your passion. And I don't want to do that. I think once you lose your passion, you become old. And I'm old, like I'm retiring soon. I get an AARP card. I get the discount. I eat dinner at 4:30. People ask me, what are you going to do when you retire? And I say, I don't know. I just kind of want to walk my dogs in the morning and not have to go to school. I've trained all kinds of people from all over. I have, all kinds of people show up at my house. It's scary to come to my house. I have 2 really big dogs. One of them's aggressive. She likes to play with you. And you walk right into the house. So there's a gate, and the dogs are sitting there looking at you, and they're big. They're really big. Go right on down to the basement. I've been writing articles for people for forever, whether it's Simply Faster. I just like writing articles because it's a way that I can get my thoughts out. I can solidify my thoughts and put it down on paper. And I'm a teacher. I'm not a business guy. I want to share with what I have because really my goal in my history of my athletic career is there wasn't a coach that could help me get faster. There wasn't a coach who did this. And really, I want to be what's missing in the world. So that was someone who can teach other coaches how to get their kids faster. So that's why I write, and that's why I share. And most people don't like to share. They're really weird about it. Tony Holler and I run Track Football Consortium together. It's this December. I know Chris Kerr comes. It's a great way for a bunch of outside-of-the-box thinkers to come together. I wrote Triphasic Training with Cal for football. We wrote some other things together. Cal is my business partner in a lot of different ways. I am a track coach. I played football in college. I was a football coach for a while in high school. I know that's not a huge time, but in Illinois, where it's cold until May, when you run under 42 every year, I have had more all-state relay teams than anyone else in the history of Illinois, and I've had more sub-11 sprinters than anyone in the history of Illinois. So I've done research. I've written research papers with Ken Clark, Aaron Fesser. So I've done overspeed. I think we are the only people that have done an overspeed research, or we were the first. And I've done wearables. So with that, I do work I am a research, what's my title? I don't even know my title. But the reason why I have this up there is because if you're looking to get a PhD, anyone looking into getting a PhD, that seems to be the thing. If you're a sports scientist, you need to be a doctor. This is the best deal in town. It's Sprints. That is their Olympic facility there. John Cronin, one of the nicest people on the planet. You set up a PhD program through them, and it's basically what you do at work every day. So if you're working on whatever, you can turn that into a PhD. And that's what they do. Really good deal. And I will help you with your research. I advise. I'm a advisor, a research advisor, I think my title is. Anyway, I've worked with all kinds of pro teams from all over the world, all kinds of different things. I hit a little bump in 2021. Dave Montgomery had a horrible 40-yard dash time at the combine, dropped him 3 rounds. In the draft, he came to me with some other guys, kind of COVID-ish. When everyone else was shut down, I was still training people illegally. I don't care. What are you going to do? We're going to shut you down. What's my basement? I can't go in my basement? I mean, the state of Illinois thinks I'm a driving school. I mean, look at my logo. I fooled them. Not hard to do in the state of Illinois. You must be a car driving school. Yeah, you're right. You're right. We're out on the street racing all the time. So I got him faster. How do we know? Because he had a 1,000-yard year. He hit some 22 miles an hour when he was getting away. Then he got traded away up to Detroit. Now he's up there. But here's my goal today. I want to make you think. My dad told me, my dad's not a teacher, he was a lawyer. My dad told me, if you can get people to think, that's the best thing I can do for you. I mean, I can put up here and put graphs up and give you workout programs and templates and all that, but you're just copying my stuff. I train in my street, guys. When I do my acceleration work, you go for 10 meters straight, and then there's a 5-degree hill. That's not what you have. So if I can give you some things to make you think about what you're doing as you're going away, maybe I need to try this, maybe I don't. And I saw Ben's stuff, and I've written down 3 pages of stuff like, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. Maybe I need to do this differently. That's what I'm here for. That's what I want. That's my goal. So I'm not going to give you 3 sets of 10 because my 3 sets of 10 might be different than your 3 sets of 10. So how did I get to this point? Well, I was a max velocity guy. I liked Peter Wayne. I went and saw him speak in 2004. He was phenomenal. And then I got all into it and all that. But then we kind of bypassed Ralph Mann in his book that had already come out. And he has that great book that's got all those good photographs of people in different positions and what the normative data is and all that. I said, great. But now I bought a 1080. And so now I've got this different kind of data, and maybe it's not about max velocity anymore as I look at more and more data. As I tell people, I actually have the old machine, the Sprint 1 they call it now. I sit on that. And so I watch people's butts run away from me for hours a day. And the more you're sitting there, the more you start to realize, wait a minute, I can feel that cable come out even at 3 kilos when someone's really pulling away. There's got to be something more to this. By the way, I did a Google image search for Peter Holmertz, and that's what came up.
Oh, really?
Was that your Viking days?
5 years ago.
That's a good beard. He had a good beard going. So this is good. This is high school good. I'm a high school coach. I mean, I know how to do stuff for upper levels. I'm really good at lower level stuff, but this is a really good high school kid. And that's really what we want. If you're trying to put money in your pocket, the money's in high school because that's where the kids are trying to reach their dreams. And for most kids, it's how fast you are. You know, I have a good salary. My wife's got a great veterinary practice. You know, me training people is about, can I buy more guitars and can I go scuba diving and water skiing? That's what I'm paying for with my job. So this is what you need to be able to do. This guy's name is John Gore. He is probably my best accelerator ever. He had the fastest time in state in the 60-meter dash. I think he went 6.62, which is moving for a high school kid. What does John do really well? Nope, that's really, really good there. So, first things first, it's that back leg push. How fast can you move your mass before your first foot does anything? And that's where most people miss the boat in working with high school kids, is they don't emphasize that back leg push enough. Everyone's putting everything onto that front leg when you push. So watch John now. He's coming out of a 2-point stance, and that is a good drill to block up that back leg so you really learn how to emphasize that back leg push. Because watch what he has to do when he pushes. And by the way, guys, I'm sorry I won't have a lot of film. Adam asked me to go over my article that I wrote, but I have to throw this in there so we can all know kind of what we're talking about. So look at how far his body moves just by that back leg push. And when he goes, what I coach kids to do is that back leg push is what drops your knee down. So that back leg push moved his body, his center of mass forward, and it's going to drop that knee down. And so now I'm going to start to measure at this point here. So if I'm sitting here talking to a kid, I'm going to say, I can't take my finger off this mouse or it's going to go, but look at his left leg shank, his shin angle. That's his beginning push. Okay? So when he is pushing forward, he is pushing at, his initial pushes, he's pushing at, I don't know, I'm going to call that about 30 degrees, which is pretty good. So see how he's loaded? To make John Gore faster, I'm going to have to make that left foot stronger. He should be more vertical in that foot. Now, if I could get a high school kid to do 6'5", that's pretty good. He'd be the fastest kid in the history of state. So when he launches at toe off, come on, baby, he's still pushing down low. He's still under 30 degrees. Why is that important? Because most people at their toe off push their shin up. So they have to, their trajectory is this way rather than that way. Because our neural system creates a targeting system where we know the end of the finish line is our target, what they will do to compensate for the lack of shin angle is they will lean forward. So you could do all the drill work in the world to try to get rid of that forward lean, but until they drop that shin angle down and get more of a horizontal push, you're wasting time. Because what happens is this, the only thing that touches the ground when we sprint is your foot. And the foot's what pushes you forward. What your body does quite cleverly in about 8/100ths of a second is it assesses where the foot is pushing, and then the body adjusts to get you to the target. How do I know this? Well, my son, crafty little guy, for $20, I could do whatever I want to him out in the street, which includes blindfolding him and having him run. He'll do anything for $20. If you don't believe me, look at his Instagram account. He's got like 200,000 followers by doing stupid shit so he can get free Arizona iced tea and shorts. He's cheap sellout. That's the killer. He's got 200,000 followers, and I said, Cole, I'll pay you to do my social media stuff. I'll pay you good. Know what he told me? I'm good. I'm already paying for his tuition. You know, you could do this. No, Dad, I'm good. I got enough. I got enough going on. Thanks. Wait to see what your graduation gift is. So John hits. Not a bad position. His body's in a good position. He's not excessively lean because if I can keep that weight over the foot, I'm going to get more force into the ground. If I've got my weight out in foot, there's not enough vertical force into the ground, therefore I can't propel as much. It becomes a clever physics problem. So there's his load point, still in a good position. Oop, God, I left my mouse in Houston. Should be like a bad country and western song. Oh, that's right. There we go. Thank you. So there's his load point. He's still at under 45, 30, but watch what John does when he pushes. He drops his shin down. So he's using his momentum to push his knees down so he can keep that horizontal drive. Good position here. Hits. Hips over knees, and watch him drop that shin down. So as most people at that third step are starting to pop up, John is going this way. You could have 5 other guys in there with all better KPIs and RSIs and all those other acronyms that I really don't understand. But if they're pushing the wrong way, none of that matters because John is pushing that way and they're pushing that way. It's just physics, guys. Physics always wins. Physics always wins. Saltwater and physics, both undefeated. So third step, fourth step, it's all the same. Every step of the way, here's where he is going to run away from people. There's his fifth step, and he is still pushing forward. So what makes a great 100-meter dash runner? It's how long can they keep that shin angle going forward. That's all it is. The Jamaican guys are really good at keeping that down, and they can do that for a long time. I don't know how they do that or how they coach that. I just know that's why they win a lot. So watch his seventh step. He's still dropping down and going. So while most people are already hitting their max velocity or coming close to it, John is still accelerating. So I think everyone knows who this is. Drops. Push. Now he's going to get a lot more force and get further than John does, but look at how stiff his first foot is. Look at his Achilles pop out of the world. Mass is over the top instead of leaning forward. Much bigger range of motion, which means he is really, once you get to that point, it's a lot more psoas, which John didn't have. Elite sprinters, they have a psoas twice the size of an average or a good sprinter. It's one of the only 3 muscles that are much larger in elite athletes than they are in regular athletes. And for an extra $25, I will sell you the new psoas Right 1000 to learn how to get that. I'm just kidding. So this is my assessment, is that the reason why he has a larger psoas is because he can get into this position where only the psoas muscle can work. It takes a lot of strength to get into that position. Foot hits, no give in the ankle whatsoever. And he just can, and because his levers are longer, he gets a lot more force. So basically that's what we're looking for. Great, I think we've all seen that before. So what does this look like on a 1080? This was Ken Clark's research where he said, all right, I went to the combine, I looked at everyone running a 40-yard dash, I put the numbers into my thing, and that's what I got. Really, it's max velocity that's the difference. Everyone's read that paper, right? It was a good paper. Ken Clark writes great papers. And that's what you're getting on your 1080. And it's like, well, great. So I get a bunch of people up there. There's not a lot of difference. Great, why did I buy this thing? I can do this with a sled. Well, you hit the little button that says don't smooth the curve, and all of a sudden you get that. This is a different story. The peaks are the peak. Remember, this thing's connected to your butt, so that's your hip movement. You're moving your center of mass. That's the peak velocity of center of your mass. Now, you've got to decelerate because that push, eventually you run out of velocity and gravity takes over and you start to drop down, right? So that's what we're watching here. And now all of a sudden I look at that and I go, well, wait a minute. I hit this button, I hit another kid who's not as fast. All of a sudden these curves look really different, unlike Ken Clark's where everyone's looking the same when they come out, and the very end they kind of diverge a little bit. Yeah, that's my wide receiver, there's my defensive end, there's my offensive tackle, so on and so forth. So we break that up and we start looking at individual steps. This suddenly changes what we're looking at on a graph. Now we can tell a story. Like, for example, and I'm going to go step by step what I'm looking for per step here. But what do you see jump out at you? Here, let me start with this. Once you get up to speed, you want that to be smooth. Because that should be max velocity and they're sailing. There shouldn't be any more pump, 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 pump. And that's what you see in really good sprinters. It gets really smooth at the end. Anyone see anything jump out early on here?
Yeah, that first step. How it peaks the first step.
Yeah, you're going to get to two. You're going to get. That's the fastest from 0 to your first step. That's the most acceleration or the most velocity change that you're going to encounter and through your whole run. What about this guy here? Does he look great? No. Is he symmetrical with the other ones? It's a little low, isn't it? Could be. Well, if we're looking at this, we would hope that there'd be a more symmetrical progression, right? Because just think, if we take this and we give him a little better bump, but we keep the rest of the steps, you're going to get a higher max velocity, aren't you? So if I'm looking at this, I'm going, wait a minute, dude, that third step is a little bit off. Maybe we need to work on that third step. And I'm going to show you how you can kind of manipulate what you're doing based on what you're seeing here. And guys, this is a pretty good one. If I showed you some bad ones, you'd see sometimes this thing go flat. You'd see multiple squiggles. It wouldn't be clean. That's pretty clean. I would say, yeah, I know at 5 meters a second something's going on. So why does 1080 say to use 3 kilograms versus 1 kilogram? How many people have seen that when you're doing your testing? You should go to 3 kilos. Right, Peter? That's kind of a thing. Adam? Adam left. Oh, there he is.
You can do 1, but 3 is more of the course.
Here's the problem with 1. This looks crazy at the end here, doesn't it? Look at these huge bumps at 20 to 30 meters. Now, this is a fast kid. This is one of my fastest kids in max velocity. He was never a great starter, but he could hit over 11 meters a second in a max velocity run. Very difficult to coach because he didn't like to beat people too bad, so what he would do is he would run and get close to people and let them pass him up, and then he would run just fast enough to go faster than them to win the race. I'm like, why don't you just go all out? You could set the state record. He goes, no, I don't want to do that. There's no drama in that. So he's at the state meet running for drama, for social media, rather than I want to dominate and get state records. I'll get more hits if I do drama, coach. All right. One of my favorite kids. So there's 1 kilo. So what happens with Rob is, or then if you look at 3 kilos, look at how smooth he is. The faster you get at 1 kilo, he's going so hard and so fast here, and his hips are moving so fast that it's pulling 1 kilo out a little bit by a little bit, and that's why you're getting these spikes. So at 3 kilos, you're going to get a much more accurate picture of what's going on when the faster the kid. Now, if you got a slow kid, 1 kilo is fine. They're not going to go fast enough to actually put a big pull on that machine. So I test everything at 3 kilos. If you want to convert that to 1 kilo, take about a tenth off. Usually for every kilogram that we go up, it's usually costing about 5/100ths of a second per kilogram. Now, you can use that to your advantage, and if you keep creeping up and all of a sudden you see a big jump, maybe that's the speed you need to work at then. That's the tension that you need to work at because you're looking for the symmetrical degradation with each level that you're going up in poundage. But I'm going to get to that in a second. So, your kid runs. By the way, I got this offline. I couldn't figure out how to screen shoot those tablets. You hit the button, the force velocity button. Here's all the stuff that you get. Now, this is usually enough to tell your story. Okay, you've got this graph. It's pretty symmetrical. So what do all these numbers show? And they talked about this just a second ago, but basically, your force velocity theoretical max of pushing at your body weight. You want to be at least 8 newtons per kilogram. Now, there's two ways you can get to that if you're below that. You can lose weight, right? It's just a math equation. Or you've got to work on that first step. If you cannot make at least 8, you're done. You are slow. That's it. So when you get these parents to come and see, he's a Division I athlete. You know, I'm pissed he's not going to Alabama. He's not getting any looks. You put him on the 10A. You're pushing at 6.75 newtons per kilogram. You're not fast. They got me at a 4.4. Coach got me at a 4.4. No. In what, like a 32? Come on. It's not there. So if you want to be fast, you have to push at least 8 newtons per kilogram. And if you are not at that, that's what you need to work on because everything else becomes a way to deal with the fact that you're not pushing out, which would be excessive body lean. It will be too much drama with your upper body trying to pump to get yourself out of the hole. So you got to start at the foundations and you got to get to that point first. I'm going to show you some stuff to do. Power, you got to be at least at 22 watts per kilogram. If you are not generating that power, you are not fast. You're pretty good, like 20, 21 is pretty good. But that's your transition from that second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh step. That's where you got to be. And again, I can't say because the camera's on. Let's just say I have access to a lot of really good data from some really elite groups, all the way down to 8th graders and 7th graders. Theoretical max, this is one I like to play with because I tell kids that's how fast you could be. But at 20 meters, you got to be hitting 9 meters a second. And at 30 meters, you got to be hitting 10 meters a second if you want to be fast. Again, I'm out on my street sometimes. My street's kind of worn down now. I keep telling them they need to repave it. I go out and I actually paint my street. And what are they going to do? Is that vandalism? I didn't do it. Did you got me on film doing it? I don't know who did it. It looks like a track. Yeah. That's not me. I think it's the neighbor over there. They're 92 and he's losing it. He went out and painted it. If you're flying out of O'Hare or Midway and you fly over my house, you'll see my driveway and my street because it's all painted. You know, that's Korfist's house. He's painted everything around there. This is a huge one. How long can you, what percent are you pushing forward? You need to be at 56%. And here's the big one, diminishing rate of force. If you are an elite sprinter, you can hold that horizontal drive longer than everyone else. You're accelerating longer. So that's what all those numbers mean when you hit the force velocity stuff. In high school, really good high school kid is 8.65, 10.88 meters a second. Someone put out there that Usain Bolt is hitting 34 watts per kilogram on his second step, and I'm guessing they got that off of a film. I don't think he pulled on a 1080 and did that. Yeah?
For that 8 newtons per kg, what was the duration that you found that 8 newtons per kg? Was it over the entire sprint or from...
So as you go on, because force is getting a mass from 0 velocity to velocity, your force should ideally decrease and your power should increase. Because power is you're accelerating. Okay? So I'm only looking at first step, your peak at your first step. And as Ben talked about earlier, how fast can you get to that 8 meters a second or 8 newtons per kilogram is huge. Yeah.
And that's that small spike you showed on their first step.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a number you saw like that the highest that you've seen is like 10, like a
I've seen 11s.
11s?
Yeah. But he makes a lot of money. So that's what I'm looking for. This is an all-state high school kid in Illinois who ran a 4.35 at the Notre Dame camp this summer. And he ran that, and they put money down in front of him and said, "We want you to sign right now." Because he's a legit 4.35. That's what that looks like. So if you're looking at the graph, this is a legit 4.4, NFL 4.4. They're over 3 meters a second. They're over 4 meters a second. And here's the killer, guys. How fast you can get to 6 meters a second. He's over. So he's already, the race is over at this point, right? If you're there, if that other guy's next to you is at 6 meters a second on his 4-step, you're at 6.2, it's over. Because once they get up to speed, it's how well can you hold that speed, and elite sprinters are just very efficient at keeping that speed. There's minimal decrement over time once at max velocity. Or other people, you start getting the drama, like baseball players are the worst. They have to run a 60, which is ridiculous for baseball, but you see them get out, and then you got the drama, the hat comes off, there's a little piece of spit that falls out, and they've got the drama. Sometimes they trip at the end, and it's, he's blew his hamstring. No, the kid doesn't even have a hamstring. He's a baseball player. Sorry, baseball puzzles me. There's a lot of standing. So here's 3 meters a second at step 1, generating about 60 newtons of force. So it's important where you're pushing those newtons too, so that's got to be a horizontal push. If you get a baby spike, like a little itty bitty one, and it looks just like a little ledge right there, that's their push. That indicates that they aren't pushing off their back leg. If you get a baby spike, that is someone who is just pushing off their front leg because their momentum hasn't moved forward to generate one clean spike. That's a boom, boom. So besides putting your foot up on that back block, one thing that works really well for me is you get in whatever stance you're at. And again, this is beginning stuff. You pick up your first leg, push off back foot, and then step through. Then you try to decrease the time from picking up the leg and putting it down, where it just becomes one big movement, push forward. Easy to do. You can get it done in 20 minutes. Another thing, if you want to block that back leg up higher and push off a wall, that really forces them to drop that shin down to push forward. So 3 easy things you can work on just from a technique standpoint, because like I said, if you aren't pushing this way, you're done. It's over. Step 2, you got to be at 4 meters a second. This person's at 4.5, 4.3, but he's moving right out of the gate. Again, getting the big spikes. By step 4, you got to be at 6 meters a second. And this is the biggest one that differentiates athletes, because if it's taking most athletes to get 6 steps to get to 6 meters a second, it's over at this point if this guy's at 6.2. This is at 1 kilo. This is at 1 kilo. Where was this? In my street. So let's talk about environment for a second. Surface matters. This is different than my street. Everyone says, how do you bring all these people to your house and you run out on your street? Shouldn't you be at some facility? And some people don't come to me because I don't have a facility. I don't care, then don't come to me. I just need enough money to buy a guitar, 1 scuba trip, and I go water skiing twice. That's all I need money for. So if you can, on step 3, if you hit 6 meters a second, you are officially a freak. It's over. I mean, this is one of the fastest guys in the NFL. So here's problems with this. I'm going to start with this one first. Body positions and steps. Body position will wreck where you're starting. Like if you've got too much forward lean, you're done. Because you have too much force going this way and it's too big of a brake when you're accelerating. You want to have as little foot on the brake as possible when you're going out, and that's why it's really important that you keep your center of mass over that front leg, because you're dealing with a vertical force and a horizontal force. And so if you can keep that in a place that you can control everything, you're going to do a better job. You're going to get more out of that push because more of your mass is going to be in front of that push. So if you're lifting weights a lot and you have these enormous arms, what's going to happen if I take my 24-inch python and I throw that out in front? I've got a 24-inch python that I've got to deal with because that just got thrown out in front. How am I going to deal with that on my next step? So that's something, and we're going to look at when we train how we can get around this. The J.B. Moran stuff, great stuff. It helped a lot when he came out with the paper and all those guys, and he does great work. I've had him speak at TFC a couple times. But he is looking at a max velocity, a basic. We're going to find your max velocity at 20 meters, and then we're going to cut that by half, and that's how much we're going to put on the 1080 sprint. Human beings like to find the simplest thing possible and hope to God it works. And the problem with what we do with running is you are taking by far the most complex thing that the human body can do, which is sprinting at max speed, and trying to simplify it into something that you can put on Instagram in a meme or something like that. Now, from what they have and the equipment that they have, it's appropriate, and you can find research to make it right. I know how research works, and I know how people do stuff. And it makes a great paper, and he has pushed the needle, or pushed the bar up in our world. But with this technology that we have with the 1080, we can really modify with what he has done and basically take his principle and apply it to our bumpy chart all the way up. We're all into this, right? How much power can you produce? But it's really a bunch of everything. It's a whole bunch of everything. It all merges in. One merges into another, which merges into another, and you've got to find this balance. So there's J.B. Moran. There he is with Ken Clark. Do you guys know my Ken Clark story when we were doing overspeed research? Anyone here? Tell it?
Yeah, I don't know.
So we're at Hinsdale Central where I teach. They have a field house, a decent field house, and I brought my timing system. Which one did I have? It's the fancy one. Someone said, it's got all the lights. Swift. I have Swift. And so we're doing 10-meter segments, getting pulled over speed. It took us an hour to set up, and Ken's kind of a tense guy when it comes to research stuff like that. And so he goes, I've never done overspeed. I want to try it before everyone gets here. And I said, you sure you want to do this? He goes, yeah. So 65-meter track. I've got the 1080 at one end. He's at the other end. And I've got all these Swift beams, all their lights blinking, and it's beautiful. It's like, this looks really good. So Ken gets at the other end, and he puts on the belt, and I'm at the other end, and I've got it, 14 meters a second. I've got it all cranked up. And he's about to go. All of a sudden, the belt breaks. And I see this belt tied to that thing, and when it broke, it must have went sideways because it's like this giant snake coming at me. Boom, one beam, boom, the next beam, boom. It's like it had a radar knocking out all the beams that were set up. And it's like, oh, no. Not only those are my beams that are on the ground. Those are expensive beams. Like there's pieces everywhere. And he goes, I guess I gained some weight from back in the old days, and the belt didn't. Thank God everything went back and it was like nothing happened, but it's funny. Scary stuff. I think Michal Cahill has come the closest to getting it right. If you haven't seen that piece of research, it's phenomenal. He has since moved to Ireland. He was in Houston and Dallas. And so looking at speed over distance compared to force over time, again, we're going to see those huge force spikes early on, which is what we want to see. Hopefully, the bigger the force spike, the faster you're pushing out. But again, it could become a technique thing, and this is what we're looking for here. So here's John loaded. And there's his push. I think the problem is, again, Ben hinted on this earlier with his hockey guys, is what in the weight room do we have that looks like this? It's not really a squat. It's certainly not a clean. So how can we try to replicate that? You can do overcoming isometrics. Push off that back leg, push off that front leg as hard as you can. I think that's a good start, but really that's where the whole idea of the 1080 comes, is because it's the most similar to what we're doing. And what have we found out about research in this first position? What do we know is actually doing the push here? Vastus lateralis is second place. Rec fem a little bit. Plantar flexion. The gastrocs work with the the gastrocs work with vastus lateralis, and that's what's pushing you forward. When I go into a traditional squat exercise, is that a lot of vastus lateralis? No, he's just holding your knee in place so you don't break with 500 pounds on your back. That's all he's doing. He's not doing any projection, he's doing stabilization. What's also interesting is the harder you press out, the faster you go out, the less amount of stabilization you need. How many people remember learning how to ride a bike, or your kid rode a bike and they're going back and forth, Johnny, go faster, no, Johnny, and then you got the Band-Aids and the whole drama, right? So we gave him a shove, so he had some velocity for stability. So really your velocity coming out of the blocks is your stability, so you can neurologically recruit more muscles to push forward than you need to stabilize. And once you get going fast, you get more stability as you go faster. Which is why maybe doing some overspeed pulls out of the hole is kind of an important thing. Were you getting dragged? Has anyone done that? Where you get pulled out of the blocks? Fun times. But I've got some exercises coming for this. Again, if we put this up in a vertical world, because in a weight room, everything is vertical. Vertical is cheap for designing equipment, right? Everything's up and down because weights drop. That's why 1080 is so expensive. We can do all this multi-directional stuff. The multi-directional stuff is really expensive because you've taken gravity out of the equation. But that's what we're looking to do if we turn him straight up. And then you can start to see just how important the plantar flexors are when he is pushing up. And again, to get this knee up, that's all psoas. That's all psoas and rec fem. From a contraction relaxation standpoint, when the psoas contracts hard, what has to relax? The hamstring. So now you've got this muscle coming going, but if I'm locked down the whole time, I can't get a true push and pull. I've degraded the push and pull into a smaller number, into a smaller world. One thing I like to do on the synchro is, all right, I know that you're getting out at 3 meters a second. We'll just do a single step off the synchro. We'll put the blocks in. I'll make it so that you can only pull out at 1.5 meters a second. So I'm just taking J.B. Morin's 50% decrement to develop power, and I'm just working on that first step. I can start decreasing the load and hope that I'm increasing the velocity when I'm pushing out. So I'm just playing with numbers. I'm really good at hitting buttons and trying stuff and trying to break stuff. The problem is when I break stuff, Peter says, what's the Swedish term for not having thumbs? You're Swedish. I don't know Swedish. I know Swedish meatballs and Volvo. Those are the only Swedish words I know.
Yeah, I can say anything, right?
You said there's a Swedish phrase for me for people with no thumbs.
Oh, yeah. Let me think about that.
You know, he listens to Swedish podcasts in the car. There's Swedish people talking on his podcast. I didn't know they had computers in Sweden. So just a single step out of the synchro, and I can probably do that with the second step too. But I'm just going to change my body positions. So in the 1080...
Sorry, Chris, with a single step, is that isokinetic?
Yeah, where have you been with your questions? I pay you to do this.
Oh, wait. Is that isokinetic, or is that you're just adding resistance to it?
For the single step,
Yeah.
I can do it either way.
What do you like to do?
What do I like to do? Both. You know me, I'm not very good at following a template. That's probably my weakness, is I can't stick with something very long. I get bored. So how can I replicate this on the Smith machine or the 1080 Synchro? He's going to go down and push straight up. So why is this different? His foot's way out in front. Now, if we can stop that in a different place, and I've learned how to do this, it's starting to look like the better positions that we see when you're pushing out of the blocks. If we put him on face down, I flipped him, it would look more like he's pushing out of the blocks. I can block that foot up and do the same thing. And so watch his plantar flexor or his Achilles jump out here. I always like to have heel up off nothing because I want the brain to think that there's nothing underneath it and it suddenly tenses up that foot. I can pull your toes up and make the foot tense up even more. I can just pull up your big toe or block up your big toe. By the way, who knows what gives you the natural body lean? What muscle is responsible for giving you the natural body lean when you sprint? The most important muscle. Your big toe muscle. That's what actually gives you your forward lean when you sprint. So how do we strengthen it? I'm going to take a little green wedge plastic foam thing, stick it underneath your big toe, and when you push up, I'm going to have you try to put a divot in my green wedge. By the way, that is my basement. I have a synchro in my basement. Dogs aren't allowed in the basement. For some reason, my wife made that rule. But anytime you get that leg out of the front, you're starting to look like you're actually pushing out of the blocks. So now I'm going to raise the heel, and this is kind of my end range. So I've got plantar flexion. I'm going to try to keep that locked. Again, research shows the better you can keep this angle, probably at about 100 degrees through your push, the faster you run. Again, it's one of these variables that people in the weight room don't want to deal with because it doesn't deal with all the equipment that we have here, because it's just something as simple as that. Now, it requires an incredible amount of strength to be able to hold that position through your foot. But again, you can see just how much when he does this, how much is required of his calf. And again, this is just for your first step. Step up, same thing. Step up, the box is again out in front. Oops, he can't do it. He can't go fast enough. I think I'm at 0.3 meters a second. He just doesn't have the strength. He collapses. So I can make the speed more, whatever, till I find that he has a stability in that push. Because really, as I said, this is number one. Fastest lateralis is number two. When I put that foot out in front, who's the only guy that can work when the foot's out in front? Fastest lateralis. So all I've done is I've taken the research to say, hey, these are the two big guys to push me out to get me at 3 meters a second, and that's what I'm going to train. And then I can rotate you around. Again, if people come and watch me train, it's going to be different every single time because I have the attention span of a gnat. So what happens when you get this great power and you don't have the turnover? You're not as fast. So frequency is an important part as well. And sometimes you can see it. So when you go to the app, how many people use the app? I live on the app. If I'm getting a discrepancy in frequency after my first step, that's an issue. Maybe I need to work on leg speed on one side. Or over time, if I start out really slow, and then I can see I'm picking up, maybe I need to work on that frequency coming out. So now it becomes how fast can I turn it over. So it's really a stride rate versus stride frequency thing. Which is, for years I said, no, that's not it. It's vertical force into the ground, all that. And I said, no, it's still stride length versus stride frequency. If I can meet both of those match, that's a good thing. Usually when you get a difference in the frequency here, this is what I have found. Again, there's no science to back this up. This is me doing stupid stuff and playing around. But there's got to be this tie between arm and leg swing, right? So I had someone that had a big discrepancy in the frequency, and I was probably listening to some music, and it made me think of this because I was dancing in the kitchen or whatever. I don't have kids at home, so I can kind of do whatever I want. My wife works all the time, so it's really just me and the dogs. Can you go like this? Great, that's wonderful. Now what about the other side? And you'll see people do all kinds of crazy stuff. So a lot of times that lack of frequency isn't the fact that they can't do it. It's the fact that they don't have the stability through their torso to stabilize on that one side. Thanks for playing soccer since you're 3, or hockey, or baseball, all these one-side dominant things. So when you go to sprint, you're going to start to see this discrepancy because they don't have this opposite left-hand way. But you can train it. But that's what I have found. It's not that one side was stronger than the other. Again, this has to get edited out, so I'll do a signal. But with one of the NFL teams, we're taking 3-dimensional MRIs. AI makes the 3-dimensional what the muscle looks like in MRI, and we're comparing that with video and 1080 data. And the asymmetries are like the QL. The left QL is off, or the medial gastroc is off. It's not the big muscles that we think. And that's what's making me push. Well, then I have them do this, and it's like, yeah, they're off. They're, like the drunk guy at the wedding dance. He dances once a year, and it shows. So it could be something as simple as that. I don't know. So how much weight do I use? Again, I'm going to determine what stride you're slow at, or I can just go through a variety of things. If I instantly go to, I'm going to decrease you by half, you don't look the same when you sprint. You're all bent over. There's a lot of drama. I'm going to take you through some different settings, at 1 kilo, 15, or whatever, and I'm going to see where you're going to have a bigger drop-off, and that's where I'm going to go. So I know Sprint 2 is excited because they can go up to 40 kilos. I don't go heavy anymore. I rarely go above 20 because I'm finding a big drop-off at 12. And again, what am I working on? So indoors, because we don't have 100 meters to run, I'm really working on these first 15 meters. I'm going to find where that decrement is, and that's where you're going to go. But once we're out on the track and we're doing 100-meter runs or longer stuff, again, I can find where I have that decrement. And sometimes you're only pulling at 5 or 6 kilograms for max velocity work. So I think, again, J.B. Morin's thing is great. It's got, a really basic, simple thing. But then you have to ask what part of my race is off. Max velocity is not pulling 15 kilos or 20 kilos or 30 kilos. That's more like 4, 5, 6, because I'm looking for about a 10% decrement in a velocity setting. I don't want a 50% decrement if I'm working max speed. Neurologically, that makes no sense to your brain. It's like, what is this? It's great for acceleration, but where am I using it?
For your drop-off, if it's way more than your 0.05 per kilogram, is that where, we're going to stay?
Yeah, we're going to stay at that speed. Okay. Here's step 2. Again, that's the position that we're looking at right there. It's really pretty much step 2, 3, and 4. So again, you can do a step up, a box step up, but here's what really happens at this point, ladies and gentlemen. Once this foot hits the ground, it becomes a fulcrum. All right, so really from a physics standpoint, how can I get my mass over that thing sticking in the ground? So that's really this movement here. That's all it's doing. I'm in this bent position. I'm pulling back and through. So who's working here? What guys are working here? Cool research by Marcus Pandy came out last year, 2 years ago. It won the best research of the decade, which is a really cool thing. It's a really great paper. And this kind of wrecks the old traditional strength training stuff, and it really has a lot to do with hockey as well, because really for us, it's the same position as hockey, where your kind of feet are slightly turned out and you're pushing. That's right, none of them are working. You're correct. What's traditional thought? Glutes, right? Nobody wanted to stay because they knew they were going to be wrong. I'm setting you up all the time. It is one of your glutes. How many glutes do you have in reality? You've got a bunch. 2 big glutes, right? The glute max does push and rotate. Glute minimus, I still don't know what the hell he does. I just know he's small because I know that word in Latin. Glute med. How many heads of your glute med do you have?
3.
3. Thank you, Chris Kerr. You've heard this before. I paid him to do this, by the way. So who is the glute med that's going to move you forward? Well, the first head of your glute med, your anterior glute med, is when your foot hits the ground. This is, I'm holding your hip in place when you hit. Medial glute med is I'm holding you in place. Now, what does that posterior head do? Well, my mass is already gone. I don't need stabilization anymore. And if my foot is turned out, I can't engage my glute max. It has to be posterior head of my glute med. How can I exercise that? Well, it's pretty simple. I'm just going to do something and pull my foot through. So you could do foot to bent over, turned out. Prime times, but my ass is still too far behind, so I can lean in. I'm out of the camera, sorry. I was told do not leave that spot, and normally I move around a lot. What else I can do on the synchro is this, and this is, I stole from Matt Neal. He's a welder guy, and he welded this great crazy thing, which he said he was going to send me one, and then he never talked to me again. I put my foot in any kind of cable, and I'm just going to flip it back here. It's the same motion. I'm either moving my hip over my fulcrum or I'm moving my foot away from the fulcrum. It's important that that foot turns out and I push back. You can use the fancy strap that I got from Spuds. It's got a web that goes over the ball of your foot, so now I can push back through the ball of my big toe, because guess who's in first place behind the glute med? Gastroc again. Dang it. So I want to try to replicate these positions the best I can in the weight room, because that is not a squat. It's not a clean. There's no fulcrum involved when I'm doing traditional weightlifting. Because really, from a physics standpoint, how can I move my body over this thing that they've stuck in the ground? Oh yeah, and I got my body weight coming down on that too. So again, I flip them sideways. That's what we're trying to look like. Step 3, kind of the same thing. Can I move my foot over the fulcrum? Now I can add a hamstring component, because this is when your bicep femoris comes in and brings you into the ground and semitendinosus pulls you over. Now they're working with your glute med. So if you're working on this, there has to be an aspect of, well, we saw Bolt come out, his foot came way up, and he was in the air forever, and he created all that speed to come down in the ground. That's where their power comes from. It's not that they're pushing, it's that foot is coming in so fast that it's pulling them over the fulcrum. So we're just going to look at this from a different standpoint. Step 4, the same. This dude's moving. But you can see how force is slowly starting to decrease. Someone's slow, you're going to see a huge drop off in the force. And there goes John. So if you're playing around with it and you've got no space like I have when it's cold, so can you get to 5 meters in under 1.3 seconds? You've got 5 meters in here. I think everyone can come up with 5 meters somewhere. Can you make it to 3.3 meters in a second or less? Again, we may have to share the field house with badminton, basketball, softball, and baseball on the really bad day. I don't have a lot of space, but I got to get a workout in, and maybe I can shoot for something like this. Or can your first step make it to 0.5 meters? So it's not where your foot hits, ladies and gentlemen, it's where your hip is when you hit. So you'll have some kid go like this. I made it, coach. Yeah, but where's your mass? You're going to measure to where their hip is when their foot hits the ground. So can you roll forward and project forward? That's what you're looking to do. And then when you got a client and you're doing individual stuff, you say, hey, let's let the graph tell the story. Can we figure out where you're going bad? Well, you're struggling to make the transition when you're at about 8 meters a second. So maybe we need to do some lighter pulls where you get a nice build-up, but then work on that transition speed where you're... And really, I think the more elite athlete, the less you're going to see that transition. And then, of course, you have, well, what's going on here? Well, he saw where the beams are, and he knows that I basically take my 4 top times. I don't care who you are. 4 top times, you're the 4x1. You're the 4x2. That's it. I don't care what you did. If you missed practice 3 days this week, that's not great. I frown upon that, but when you get competitive like that in a track setting, people come to practice and they'll go hard. I don't know how many we do, because once it gets competitive, people are trying to beat people. So I don't have like 3 reps. We're only doing 3. It could be 6 o'clock at night and I want to go home. And they're going, no, that kid ran that. I'm going again, coach. All right, let's do it. And I've got all this really accurate data where we can make marks and all that. So basically, if you got something that's all bent out of shape and a mess, like with asymmetry, now you can start dealing with things. And that's what asymmetry looks like at max velocity. That asymmetry may be completely different in an acceleration phase. I start seeing an asymmetry like that. I'm going to start with my swinging arm and leg. But sometimes that's going to be a bicep fem. That's going to be semitendinosis. I can look at their foot position at max velocity on film and say, wait a minute, there's no internal rotation. Maybe we need to look at adductor magnus. And with RPR, I forgot, I own RPR. Everyone knows what RPR is, so I can say I did my plug. Thank you for supporting us. Blah blah blah. I can see what muscles are on and off, so I can manually check to see what's on or off, and then I can say, hey, let's see what happens. Go run again. Let's see if we made a change. And then you look at the numbers here. You can see one side is 42 to 74, 37 to 43, and you can look at distances. You can look at frequencies and try to undo that. What they have found is that once you're hitting above 12 to 15% in asymmetry, you usually have an injury coming. And we're trying to stop that, because you got to have the kids on the field. That's more important than how much better are they getting, especially in football and track. Any questions? Sorry, I gave you a lot. I always give a lot.